President Trump has told Israel that it must stop bombing Gaza immediately, as Hamas has agreed to release all remaining hostages, living and dead, a key demand in the president's proposed peace plan. Earlier, Hamas said it accepted some parts of his proposal, but is seeking to make some changes. It made no mention of a key demand of the plan, that it agrees to its disarmament and to playing no further role in the governance of Gaza. Reports in the Israeli media, quoting a statement from the Prime Minister's office, say that the government is getting ready for the release of the remaining hostages. Our North America correspondent Peter Bowes has the latest.
Fresh momentum for peace in Gaza. Hurdles remain, but Hamas and President Trump appear to be moving towards common ground. In a flurry of back-and-forth statements, Hamas said it was ready to accept the US plan for Gaza, with some points still up for negotiation. Crucially, the group said it would release all the remaining Israeli hostages, both living and dead. And it would agree to future administration of the Gaza Strip by a Palestinian body of independents or technocrats, as outlined in Donald Trump's proposal.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents, because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive.
And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East.
A Hamas spokesperson told the BBC the president's comments were encouraging and that the group was ready to begin negotiations immediately. Hours earlier, there was a very different tone from Donald Trump, telling Hamas all hell would break out if it failed to reach an agreement by Sunday night. But events move quickly, with Gaza now apparently on the brink of a major breakthrough. A very special day, said the president, as he thanked the countries he said helped bring about an agreement, including Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Jordan.
Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East, and we're very close to achieving that. Thank you all, and everybody will be treated fairly.
There is a palpable sense of progress. Sir Keir Starmer said President Trump's efforts had brought us closer to peace than ever before. He added, there is now an opportunity to end the fighting, for the hostages to return home and for humanitarian aid to reach those who so desperately need it. We call on all sides to implement the agreement without delay. But there are outstanding issues that could prove stumbling blocks. Hamas appears to have rejected a demand to disarm and leave Gaza, while it remains unclear whether Israel will fully withdraw from the territory. Intense negotiations are expected to continue in the coming days. Peter Bowes, BBC News.
Well, Moshe Lavi is the brother-in-law of one of the hostages still being held in Gaza, Omri Miran. He told us many of the hostage families see the response from Hamas as a yes, but.
There shouldn't be a deal in the first place because the hostage should be released immediately and unconditionally. But we are realistic and understand there is a deal. At the same time, we know that the Prime Minister Netanyahu has a coalition that is problematic, to say the least. The members of the radical right that I've stated before that they're obstructing deals time and time again. Now I see that there is a moment where President Trump, who gave the Prime Minister a lot of space to reach an agreement and also engage with military pressure, successful military pressure on Hamas, to finally understand that the war needs to end and that the hostages must be released and prioritized. I think the Prime Minister will be able to explain to a public that overwhelmingly supports a deal, over 70% consistently wants a deal to release the hostages. And for his coalition, he has the safeguards for members of the opposition and the majority of the coalition that support a deal. I think he will be able to carry it through, and we will not allow it to be obstructed again. But I want to emphasize again, Hamas needs to be pressure first and foremost, and they need to agree to the framework President Trump laid out with the international community earlier this week. No buts and no delays.
Moshi Lavi. Well, I asked Benjamin Rad, a senior fellow in international law at UCLA, whether he thought this move by Hamas was enough to keep Mr. Trump's peace plan on track.
The more time passes and this sinks in and we hear clarification from Hamas, the less it seems we have cause to celebrate, though there is reason to be optimistic. Hamas's statements and their clarifications indicate not that they're agreeing to the 20-point plan, but that they're agreeing to it as a starting basis for further negotiation. Again, this is what scuttled previous ceasefire talks going way back for over a year now, where there's parameters or frameworks that are agreed upon, but then when they get into the negotiations in greater detail, we see it fall apart. This, to me, sounds awfully familiar to those prior negotiations. The difference is the pressure now on both parties is higher than it's been before, given President Trump's credibility on the line and the international community and the Arab states supporting it. So the pressure is there, but the language seems awfully familiar to what we've heard before.
Yeah, President Trump saying he believes Hamas is ready for a lasting peace. How much pressure will that now put on Benjamin Netanyahu to accept, especially when Hamas made no mention, as we've said, of disarming?
Well, we are nearing almost the 2-year anniversary of the October 7 attacks, and I can imagine as a domestic public relations win, Netanyahu would love nothing more than to announce the deal is in effect or beginning on or around October 7th, which is coming up in a few days. So I can imagine the pressure is fierce because right now it seems like the remaining hostages are within the grasp of their families to be brought back home to bring this resolution to an end. I can't see how he would be able to justify delaying and breaking their hearts even further on the basis of these, disagreements. But again, understanding that these are Netanyahu's red lines, he's made them clear all along.
Even if he does do that and within the rest of his government, it could mean that there is mass disagreement and it brings his government down.
That, and he could further alienate and strain ties with the United States, particularly those in the U.S. Congress, especially in the Democratic Party, who have been traditional stalwarts and supporters. We've seen polls recently in the United States this last week showing support is decreasing. There is pressure coming from the American side that is unprecedented, that will be even more so if Netanyahu is seen as the spoiler in this recent round.
Do you think Hamas are playing for time with what they've said in their statement?
Well, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that there is internal dissent within Hamas, that there are factions of their fighters who simply do not want to give up their arms, who do not see disarming and disbanding as an option. And then there's the political leadership, which is not based in Gaza, which is pushing for exactly that to happen. So I don't think Hamas itself is fully on the same page with regards to its members of what it wants to do. So if it is buying for time, it is simply so that it can reach a consensus.
Well, let's go live to our Middle East correspondent, Hugo Bashega, who is in Jerusalem. Hugo, I know it's the Jewish Sabbath, so not a lot of reaction yet, but what is Israel saying in response to what President Trump has said?
Yeah, Nikki, so this response by Hamas came late last night. So obviously a reaction here in Israel has been limited so far. There has been a very short statement from the Prime Minister's office saying that Israel was ready to fully implement the first phase of this plan, and that is the release of all the remaining hostages, both living and dead, who are in Gaza. So there hasn't been a lot of reaction in Israel yet following this reaction from Hamas, the response that Hamas gave to that 20-point plan that was announced by President Trump earlier this week. But obviously, I think it puts pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In the past, many, including families of the hostages, accused him of sabotaging efforts for a deal that could lead to the end of the war. And I think the response by President Trump following the statement released by Hamas, is seen as President Trump embracing, what Hamas has, said, and paves the way for negotiations to happen over the points of this peace plan that was put forward by the president.
Yeah, on that, which parts are Hamas agreeing to and which ones are they not so happy with?
Yeah, and we know that Hamas was under a lot of pressure to accept at least some points of this deal that was announced by President Trump. President Trump has been heavily involved in trying to, see progress in these negotiations and see the end of the war in Gaza. So Hamas agreed that all hostages are going to be released immediately. Again, both living and dead hostages, and also for a group of technocrats to take control of Gaza and govern Gaza. But crucially, the statement that was released yesterday didn't mention the group's disarmament, which has been a key Israeli demand in these negotiations, and also the proposal for its members to leave Gaza. So these are, key points in this plan that have been, essentially rejected by Hamas. So again, difficult negotiations lie ahead, but I think, the reaction from President Trump yesterday, embracing, Hamas's response and essentially saying that, the group is interested and ready for a lasting peace, suggests that there will be a lot of pressure on both sides, on Hamas and also on Israel, to negotiate the terms for a plan that could lead to the end of the war in Gaza.
Hugo Bashega, live in Jerusalem. Thank you.